I love you.
I love you too.
So... How many guys have you been with?
Do you mean guys I've loved or
No, I mean love.
Oh, 5 for you to 5.
What are their names?
Who, what, where, when, why? When I loved was at a time in my life where everything seemed to be falling apart. Everything was changing or brand new, and while some people would be sympathetic, they all came and went so fast that you couldn't tell if they had been there at all. It was like I kept letting people in and they exited after a while. No one ever wanted to stick around for the entire ride. All of that came to an end when I met him. Our relationship was a lot like when we first met. In a tide of stumbling bodies, hurried footsteps, and blurred faces, we had a moment. A deep connection that froze time. In that second, we saw, acknowledged, and loved each other. And when we could both see that the other was better, we let go. To this day, I don't know if our relationship really spanned 2 years or those 2 seconds. Ever since then, I've come to understand that every opportunity and every second is a blessing. And to love someone is the best way to spend your time. Who I loved once said, if love is already blind, then it can be gender blind. I never meant to fall in love with her, but to date, she was one of the few relationships in my life that I have never regretted. Some people fall in love because of a certain look or a certain laugh, but I fell for her depth. She was so open-minded and accepting of others. What's more, she was welcoming. It didn't matter who you were or what you looked like. She would treat you with the same compassion as she did everyone else. People would sometimes remark about us, but she never took it personally. She was so strong and self-assured. She taught me things like race, religion, gender, sexuality. In the end, it was all just labels. It was better to be yourself than a mimicry of someone else. Where I loved was at a college over one unbearably hot summer in Valencia. So much happened that summer. It was wonderful and horrible, forcing out the best and the worst of us. It was like they had fished us all out of the sea because they liked our shells. So they held us still and started chipping out, scraping, peeling our shells off, leaving our backs bare and raw. Then we had to turn around and use that pain to give back to them something beautiful. I met him in the middle of all that. We knew each other in our growing, our terrified, and our frailty. That's why we were together, and we knew that when the program ended, so would we. So we just tried to enjoy it. See, we couldn't beat the people we had to be at home, and the people we had fallen in love with. We dated, held each other together, and said goodbye. The whole time knowing that we would never be in the same space in our lives. And even if we could come back and meet again, it would be different. What I loved was almost everything about him. The same taste, the honest conversations, the loyalty and understanding. It was all there. We were almost a perfect couple. Almost. It was my first internship out of college, and he was my director. We never intended to mix business with pleasure, but I thought everything would end with my internship, but I was wrong. That's when everything started. He was driven, confident, and set on changing the world. He loved that I was an artist and actually listened to me without thinking of what he could get in return. People were so supportive of us, and it was wonderful. Up until the day he asked me to spend the rest of my life with him. Then all we heard was this noise, like, "You guys are going too fast. You're too young. Are you pregnant? Well, watch it. At this rate, you will be." They told us that we were throwing our lives away, but what did we care? We were happy, and they were all just background noise. We did everything right. We supported each other's dreams, and I was so confident that we would survive anything. But we started very slowly to grow apart, and it was painful to see, to watch what we had been building over the years just come apart. But he ignored it, so I did too. He was driven and set on changing the world, and I was such an artist who wanted to be part of that world we had built together, just to stay there, just to stay the same. But it takes two people to fix a relationship, and if not, we were broken a long time before we called off the engagement. Why I Love was a friend I had who ran away from his home. He had some trouble saying what was on his mind and would often get into these fights. His mom and dad were trying to get a divorce, and neither of them really noticed how sad he really was. But after his parents decided to call off the divorce, he seemed to really like school and friends. He spent every waking moment he could at someone else's house. You see, back then we had this special circle of friends, but as much as we all hung out, he never let any of us too close. And back then, I thought he was just a bright, fun-loving guy who had never really had a girlfriend. But he could put a funny twist on a lot of horrible things, which makes sense seeing as how he had experienced trying to laugh off his own life. A year before he disappeared, he started in with the drugs. He had always had really high highs and really deep lows. But after he got his hands on a needle, it just got so much worse. When he was happy, he was the life of any party. But when he was down, he either got sad, got distant, and then he started getting violent. This was nothing like what he'd done before. He started picking fights with just about anybody. And the week before he ran away, he was suspended from school. His life at home was hard. He was never much talkative with us and didn't tell us about it. But what I do know isn't my story to tell. I think being forced to stay at home all the time is what did him in. The thing about him was that he was just so afraid of what we would think of him if he opened up to us. Afraid to go home and to deal with his parents. And so goddamn afraid of letting someone in or loving someone at least. There's so many people like him who had never experienced those feelings. Good and bad. It just drove home to me why we need to be open to love and why we need someone to love. Because there's just so much.
I know. But it's worth it, isn't it? That's why you can remember these people, right? Because they changed your life.
Do you think they'll remember me?
I will.
This is the end of the line. I don't know where to go.
Are you gonna have bloopers in the video? Because this is gonna be funny.
It just drove home to me why we all need. Oh my god.
Imagine it comes out in the film. Really romantic. Someone's gonna be like, "Is she giving a hand job?"
What?
So what do I do with my philanthropy?
Huh?
What do you want from me?
I don't know how to be sad.
Everybody cooks up.
Okay.
done.